Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Teen Take and Make from Manlius Library. In your kit, you should have received a small canvas, a paintbrush, a little bottle of white glue, and a small white baggie that has some orange, some green, and some purple paint. I thought this week we would do some playing around with secondary colors instead of the primary colors. And that's for the painting part of this week's kit. For the clay part of this week's kit, we're going to make little clay figurines, and everybody has a packet of a small wrapped package of blue. Some people have a darker blue, some have a lighter blue, yellow, and then a small package, not this size, but a small package of pink as well. You'll also have a couple of sandwich picks that you'll see have a pointed end and a flat, round, or squared off end. And then this little guy, which actually is a nose insert from when I was making face masks, and I had a bunch left over, so this is for the clay, and you'll see what we're going to do with this when we get to that part. So you'll also need for this a damp cloth and a cup of water, and I recommend a covering for your workspace, especially for the painting. When we get to the clay, I'll talk about why you don't want to cover your workspace with paper for the clay part. Okay, but we're going to start with the painting part. So let's set the clay aside. And we'll start with the painting. And what we're doing today is texture painting. So the first thing we're going to do is our design, and that's why you have your glue. We're going to make raised textures to paint. And you can do any design, any picture, any whatever you'd like. You could use a pencil and very lightly sketch out your design before you put the glue on. One thing I do recommend is, remember, this glue is going to spread a little bit, so don't put your lines too close together, or what you'll end up with is just a blob of glue, okay? So, for example, let the glue come to the top. I'm just going to do some random. And you can see I'm doing this so that the glue comes out and leaves a pattern. Okay, it is going to spread a little bit as it settles, and then a little more as it dries. So you don't want it too close together. Any closer together than that, and you risk it coming together. Once your edges meet, it just kind of bloobs into just a mess. So I'm just going to keep going with this. Now this is a project that takes time because you have to let your glue dry for a good 24 hours before you can paint it. Now, if you wanted to do initials, you could do that, or flowers. You can't really do anything super delicate because, as I said, the glue will come together. Now, once you've done that, take your damp cloth or your damp paper towel and wipe off the tip of the glue container and pop that red cap back on until you hear a snap, and set that aside, and that'll keep the glue good. Okay, now we're going to set this aside and let it dry. And by the magic of television, not really, by the magic of me, I have one that I did a couple of days ago, and it has been drying. And as you can see, it's just a design, but it's raised. So now we just take our colors and paint. If you have other colors you'd like to use or other brushes you'd like to use, you are, as always, you are welcome to do so. Get a little water on my brush. Oop, too much water. And we just paint. And all the glue really does is give some texture to your painting. You really need to make sure that you let the glue dry completely. Otherwise, all you're going to do is drag your paintbrush through and spread the glue around and make a mess, which is also fine. If that's the look you're going for. Now, if you wanted to take more time with it, you could do layers of design. With the glue, you could do multiple layers of the pattern. Let's turn that around. And then you just paint, and however you want it to look. This is really one of those craft days, both kits really, or both projects really, that are really just up to your imagination of how you want it to look. Set the orange aside. But I've always liked the secondary colors, at least as much, if not more than, the primary colors. Blend that right in. And you can see the design left behind by the glue. Sometimes, as you can see over here, the paint doesn't take to the glue right away with the first coat because it's smoother than the canvas and not as absorbent. Your glue is not going to absorb the paint in like the canvas will. So if you want less definition, you can always do more coats of paint. I think this is going to end up looking like an Easter egg. Which, while that wasn't my intent, makes sense. Okay. So you just keep painting until it looks the way you want it to. Looks like one of my dots had a bubble. We'll fill that up. Now it looks like a little volcano. And if you want to do something less abstract with your colors, maybe do a nature scene with some texture for the grass or the flowers or the clouds. You can always do that as well. You can do the clouds and just leave them white, not paint them. So my recommendation is to do this and let it dry, and then take a look at it and see if there are places that you want to touch it up, or put another layer of glue design on top once it is completely dry. The glue will dry clear, so you won't see it, as in it's not white on top of the paint, but it will add extra layers of texture. I'm going to add a little more purple to this one. Blend those in a little bit. There. So now you know a new technique for adding texture to your paintings. And there we go. So I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. Let's see what it looks like when it's all dry. I will clean this mess up and be right back to show you how to make, we're going to make a couple of different things. I'm going to show you how to make a little owl, a little bluebird, and some flowers with the clay. Okay, so I'm back. Got my workspace cleaned up. You'll notice I do not have paper down for this one. The clay that we're using is air dry clay. And once you open it, you can tell even just by squeezing it, it feels kind of like marshmallow almost, except it's not as sticky. It's not sticky like marshmallow, but I discovered that it does stick to paper. It won't stick to the table, but it does stick to paper. So we're going to do this one with a blank slate, and we're going to start by doing an owl. And I think I'll do that one with this blue. Okay, if you keep your clay wrapped up when you're not using it, I'm just going to do half. It almost feels like silly putty or taffy. But keep your clay wrapped up in the plastic wrap when you're not using it, because then it'll stay and you can keep using it. Okay, so I took half of that blue. I'm just going to roll it into a ball. Kind of work it a little, get it soft. Okay, roll it into a ball and then squish it. Just squish it flat into a circle. And you can see it doesn't stain, it really feels a lot like silly putty. So got that. Now we're going to use our little metal tool. We're going to do feathers. And this is how we're going to do that. In the whole bottom half, we're going to just lightly press the end, because you can see it's curved. So just lightly press the end of this. You could also, if you have a marker cap that has kind of a hollow tip, you could use that. I just thought this was kind of a neat way to reuse or use up the leftovers of these. Okay, and we're making the feathers. Okay, so we've done that. Now we're going to take and fold that to the middle and fold that to the middle. So there's our wings. Kind of smooth those down. And then we're going to take this part and fold it down. Okay? You're going to kind of use your fingers to make the little horn parts and round off his cheeks like that. Okay, now we're going to use this and we're going to do doop. And kind of make a beak, okay? And then you need, you can do this with this thing, or you could use your toothpick, and you want to do nice big round eyes. And we're not poking all the way through, we're just making nice big round eyes. And you want to get those as close to the same size as possible. Okay. I'm not real crazy about how his nose came out, or how his beak came out, so I'm going to do that. There. Oh, there's a beak. Okay, and then there you go. There's an owl. Now, if you set this aside and let it dry, it'll dry. It takes about 24 hours, but it will dry completely. Now, if you wanted to make this into a pendant, or you wanted to attach a keychain to it, you could, at this point, before it's dry, take your toothpick or your sandwich pick and basically just pierce its ear. And go all the way through. Okay? And then when it's dry completely, you can put a chain through it, or you could put a piece of canvas thread through it, or whatever you wanted to do. So there you go. You've got your owl. Okay, we're going to set him aside, let him dry. And I'm going to show you how to make a bluebird. For this one, you're going to need your blue. Actually, I'm going to continue to use this blue, I think. So, for the bluebird, you need, we're going to cut this, good size ball for the body, smaller for the head, and then 2 more for the wings. And then we're going to add a little bit of the yellow for the beak. Okay, so for the body, make it into a ball. And then we're going to kind of teardrop the end of it. Like that. Okay, so it kind of looks like a teardrop. You want a little indentation there. That's where his head's going to go, and this is his tail. Okay, so we'll take his head, just a round ball for his head. We're just going to put that there. And it should, if you push, don't push down too far, because if you do, it'll just all smush in. But if you kind of push gently, see, I just smushed it, it'll stick. If you are unsure that it's going to stay, you could always take a small piece of this, just break it off and connect the two, but I think that's going to stay. So there's our base with our body and our head. Now we're going to take these two little things and make little balls, and we're going to do little flat teardrops. So flatten it and then teardrop shape it. And this is the wings. Okay, and then put one on each side. And again, if you smooth it through like that, it'll stay. And then you want your wings to be about the same size. I think I made one of mine bigger than the other. Flatten it and teardrop it. Whoop. I am making the Nemo of bluebirds. One wing is smaller than the other. And just kind of smooth that on there like that. Okay, so there's our little bird. And if you see like cracks or something in your clay, you can smooth it over. You can also put just a little bit of water on your fingertip. Not a lot, but just a little, and that'll help smooth it through. Okay. And then the yellow. Which I wrapped up very well. You only need a little bit. Very little, just a little piece. And kind of beak shape it. And then whoop. Stick it to its face. And then you can use your toothpick and put eyes. And there you have a little bluebird with his cute wings and his little beak and his little tail. And you can add details if you want. You could use your little metal tool here to give it a little bit of a feathered look. Okay, and there's your bluebird. And again, you want to let them set aside. You want to let them dry for a good 24 hours. Now, somebody like this guy is going to dry faster because it's not as thick. He's going to take a little longer to dry all the way through. All right. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to make some flowers. I'm going to do that with some of the pink. Keep that wrapped up good. I also want to keep the yellow wrapped up good. We're going to use the yellow for the flowers as well. So, for the flowers, you want to take a piece and roll it out. You want it to be pretty uniform. And pretty narrow. take, break it in half, and then break each of these into thirds. Okay, and then we take each one and squeeze it together. Oops, this needs to be a little longer. Squeeze it together, and you don't want a real big glob of glue at the end where you're squeezing it together. You just kind of want to squeeze the very ends of it together. And they don't all have to be exactly the same size. If you've ever seen a flower in nature, it is rare that they are all the same size. Now we're just going to take each of these around in a circle. Shape them the way you want. If you find that the petals just aren't sticking together, you can always use a little bit of the leftover glue. Just a very, very small dab on the tip of a toothpick would work. But if you squish them together carefully, they will stay. And then kind of using my fingernail to rough it up and squish it together a little bit. And we're going to take a little piece of the yellow, not a real big piece, just a little piece of the yellow, and roll it into a ball and kind of squish it a little, and then squish it right onto the flower, and there you have a flower. We'll set that aside to dry, and I'll show you one more flower. I'm going to do that with pink, and I'm going to use a little bit of blue. As you can see, I got an owl and a bluebird out of that light blue. So if you leave just a little bit aside, the owl doesn't actually have to be quite as big. If I can get my other blue open. This is some quality plastic wrap. There we go. And you want about equal sizes. We're going to do the same thing, just make it into a ball and roll it out. Into a nice long, fairly even rope. Okay, I'm going to set that aside and do the same thing for this one. Now, if you have something else you'd like to make with your clay, you are, of course, well, okay, see how I got that really thin there, and I don't really want that thin. The easiest way to fix that is just to take the two ends and bring them back to where they're almost the same width, and then roll it together. And as you can see, it's not even visible that it broke. Okay. Okay, so we've got our two ropes. We're going to put them right next to each other. Roll them together a little bit. If you roll them together too much, they will blend and you'll end up with a blob, which we don't want. We're just going to twist them a little bit. Okay. And then starting on one end, let's put this up here, starting on one end, we're just gonna roll them, but you can see I'm keeping the definition. It almost looks like a cinnamon roll. You want it to be nice and snug up next to it without squishing the definition out of it. Okay, and then just kind of take and smooth that together. And you can see we've got a nice, and then take a look at it and see which side you like better. I actually think I like the side with more blue better for me. And then we're going to take just a little piece of yellow again, okay, and roll it into a ball. We're going to put it right there and just squish. And there we have another flower. So there you go. We've got a daisy and a chrysanthemum, which don't come in these colors, but that's okay. And a bluebird, and an owl. Now you want to be careful where you let these dry because they will stick to whatever surface they're drying on. So you could let them dry on a piece of spare plastic wrap. Don't put them on paper because they'll stick right to it and you'll have a really hard time getting them off. But if you let them dry on a piece of spare plastic wrap, when they're dry, you'll be able to peel them right off. Okay? All right, I'm going to clean this up. I'll be back for a few final words. Well, thanks for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed our arts and crafts. As your picture dries, you'll notice you can really start to see the texture left behind by the glue, and also you can see spots that might need some touching up. And then the clay, you want to really let it dry for a good 24 hours before you hang it on anything or really mess around with it too much. But if you wanted to use the same technique to make flowers but make them really small, you could do that. You could string them together. The options really are endless for this. I hope that you had fun today. Thanks for joining me. My name is Lori and I'm the teen librarian at Manlius Library. You can find me here on our YouTube channel every other Thursday at 3 o'clock. Registration for the next kit has opened today. We'll be doing little flower pots. We'll be planting little pots of flowers and decorating them. And we're also going to be painting a lovely spring picture. So pop over to our website and on our calendar, you can register and get that kit. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. Happy reading.